Imagine this: 100 babies placed in a completely silent room. No words, no lullabies, no human voice ever reaching their ears. Left to grow up isolated from any spoken language. What would they say if they could speak? Would they develop a language of their own? Or would they be left in total silence? Today, we're diving into one of humanity's greatest mysteries, the origin of language. And we're asking a haunting question. What language would they speak? The idea of isolating children to uncover the secrets of language isn't new. In fact, one of the earliest recorded language experiments dates back over 2,000 years. Imagine ancient Egypt, around the 7th century BC. Pharaoh Psamtik I believed that if he kept 2 babies in total isolation, they would eventually speak the world's original language, the language of the gods. His theory? Without human influence, these children would reveal the world's true, untainted words. In his experiment, these children were reportedly isolated and cared for in silence. And when they finally spoke, they uttered the word bakos, meaning bread in Phrygian. To Psamtik, this suggested that Phrygian was the world's first language. Fast forward to medieval Europe, and we encounter another ruler, Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire in the 13th century. Frederick was fascinated with language and wanted to discover if humans have an innate language, something we're born with. So he, too, attempted an isolation experiment with newborns, forbidding caregivers from speaking or showing affection. His goal? To observe whether the babies would naturally develop speech on their own. But Frederick's experiment ended in tragedy. Without social interaction, these babies didn't survive long enough to speak. His experiment underscored a critical truth. Without human connection, language and even life itself struggles to take root. In modern times, the idea of language being innate, the idea that babies are born ready to communicate, has fascinated scientists and researchers. In fact, renowned linguist Noam Chomsky theorized that humans have a universal grammar embedded within their brains, a blueprint for language that's waiting to be unlocked. Studies show that even from birth, babies are capable of distinguishing between different sounds. By 6 months, they can recognize sounds specific to the language they hear around them, and by 12 months, they start forming their first words. But here's the key: without human interaction, these linguistic milestones never develop. Researchers found that babies raised without exposure to language and, crucially, without loving human interaction fail to acquire speech and cognitive development. One groundbreaking study from the 20th century explored the importance of language exposure. In the Jeannie case, a young girl was found in the US after 13 years of severe social isolation. Deprived of human contact and language, Jeannie couldn't speak or understand words beyond basic sounds. Despite years of rehabilitation, her brain had missed critical windows for language development. This tragic case highlights a critical insight. Language is biological, but without social interaction, it remains dormant. We aren't born speaking, we're born to connect, to learn from one another. Research in language acquisition has uncovered a fascinating fact. There is a critical period for learning language, a window when the brain is highly receptive to language input. This period peaks in early childhood and starts to close around age 7. One notable study with deaf children showed that those who were exposed to sign language from infancy became fluent. But children who started learning sign language after age 7 struggled to master complex grammar and sentence structures, no matter how much practice they received. It's as if their brains missed an essential window for language. Harvard University researchers estimate that during this critical period, children acquire vocabulary at an incredible rate of about 1 word every 2 hours. This demonstrates just how primed our brains are for language in these early years. So, what language would a child speak if raised in complete isolation? The truth is, without human interaction, they likely wouldn't speak any language at all. This brings us back to that ancient Egyptian experiment. The child's word, bakos, meaning bread in Phrygian, was likely not some instinctual word but perhaps an anomaly, a reflection of the deep human need to connect, even in the most unusual circumstances. Studies over centuries reveal that language isn't just a set of words. It's a lifeline, a bridge that connects us. Without it, we are isolated, unable to truly express or understand.